You're listening to the weekly Parsha podcast with Ari Goldwag, recorded with Hashem's never-ending assistance in Ramah B'Shemesh Israel, 5778, 2017. This week's Parsha is Parshas Vayera, and I'd like to draw your attention to an amazing, deep, and essential something that goes on in our Parsha. And really it's gone on already in last week's Parsha as well, and it's the relationship of Avraham Avinu to the city of Sodom, that area of Sodom and Amorah. And that relationship is expressed in a number of different ways, which are intriguing and really need an understanding. In the previous Parsha, so we had Avraham Avinu, first of all, separating from Lot. Lot, who's his protege, goes to Sodom, ends up living there, and ends up captured during the war of the four kings and the five kings. And Avraham Avinu, Abraham himself, ends up saving the people of Sodom, and of course his nephew Lot. And in our Parsha, so we have, first of all, very interesting connection, which I'm not going to get into at length here. I have spoken about it in the past, but the very angels who come to Bimavaser, to give the news to him and to Sarah. That's actually an important point, really, because he already knew. Hashem had already informed him that he was going to have a child. But those angels who are coming to inform, really, Sarah, they go on to destroy Sodom and save Lot. Avraham Avinu is given an opportunity to pray on behalf of the people of Sodom. Hashem says, I can't just destroy Sodom without informing Avraham, without informing Abraham. So Avraham davens. He's not successful in his prayers because the people of Sodom are really not righteous at all. But indeed, we see that Avraham Avinu is intimately bound, connected to Sodom and Amorah. And I want to understand, what is the idea behind that connection? What is the depth of the idea of that connection? What does it come to teach us? Also, and it's very much connected, we find that the Jewish people throughout history, we've always been sent into exile. As Hashem promised Avraham Avinu in last week's Parsha, in the Bris Bein HaBesarim, the Jewish people are going to find themselves in exile. They're going to find themselves in a land which isn't theirs. They're going to be strangers in a strange land. And they're going to be worked to the bone. They're going to be slaves there. But afterwards they come out with miracles and they are saved. But what is the idea that the Jewish people have to go into Gullus, that we have to go into exile, that we have to go not only into an exile, but into the exile of a place which is the most powerful. Egypt at the time was the most powerful power in the known world. And the Jews throughout history have always been, whether it's the story of Esther, the story of the Jewish people in Persia, where Persia was the power at the time, or whether it was the Jewish people up till today in the Western countries, in America, etc. The Jewish people we always find ourselves in these exiles that are places which are powerful. What is the idea behind the exiles? What is the idea behind the fact that the Jews go to these places? Also, I want to understand, and this is actually the key to understanding all the questions we've asked until now, I want to understand the relationship between Avram and Sarah Imenu. And this is an idea which I've shared a number of years ago, but I want to bring it back because I think it really gives us a depth of understanding what's going on in Avraham Avinu's relationship with Sodom, and then the Jewish people's relationship with Egypt, and the Jewish people's relationship with any host country that they find themselves in, and of course, our relationship with the Ummah Ha'olam, with the nations of the world at large, generally. Because even when we are central, we have become centered in Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, we still serve, and we will serve when the Mashiach comes, when the Messiah arrives. We will still serve in the same capacity. We will serve the same purpose. What is the idea here? So let's look for a moment at Sarah and Avraham. Avraham and Sarah, Abraham and Sarah, their relationship is very interesting, and we need to understand it. Avraham Avinu, we look at last week's Parsha, Hashem informs Abraham that he and Sarah are going to have a child. Amazing thing. Avraham is 100 years old. Sarah is going to be 90 years old. Sarah no longer has her period. She's not able to conceive in a natural way. And yet Hashem tells Avraham an amazing miracle is going to occur. They're going to have a child. Avraham Avinu laughs. He just can't believe it. It's amazing news. And that's last week's Parsha. But in this week's Parsha, when Hashem sends the angels to inform Sarah Imenu, interestingly, they don't inform her directly, because Sarah can't hear it directly, but rather Avraham Avinu is told, and she hears from the Ohel, she hears from the tent, she hears it by the way. So Sarah Imenu is informed, and she laughs as well. But when she laughs, so Shem says, why did you laugh? Lama zet tzachaka Sarah? And Sarah says, I didn't laugh. Interesting conversation. First of all, how come when Avraham Avinu laughs, Hashem doesn't say anything, but when Sarah Imenu laughs, Hashem does say something. So Chazal, our sages tell us, and if you look at Unkelos says, it points out that there's a difference, because when Avraham Avinu laughs, it says v'chadi, he rejoiced. But the language, the translation of the word, but when Sarah laughs, is that she laughed in disbelief. She didn't think that it was going to happen. So, but the problem with this, the difficulty is that Avraham Avinu, we find, so it sounds like his nevuah, his prophecy is stronger. He's the one who gets the prophecy. She only hears it by the way. And he believes it. She doesn't even believe it. When it comes to Sarah, however, we find that it's not true. We find that Sarah is the one with the stronger prophecy. Where do we see that? We see that in this week's Parsha as well. Because Hashem says to Avraham Avinu, Kol asher tamer lecha Sarah, shema b'koila. Sarah Imenu are matriarchs, so she said something to Avraham Avinu. She saw that Yitzchak and Yishmael, there was something going on in that relationship that wasn't good. Yishmael was having a bad effect on him, or Yishmael was doing negative things with him. Sarah says, this boy, Yishmael, has to go, right? And Avraham Avinu, he's the Isha Chesed, he's the one who has boundless love. He wants to bring everyone Tachas Kanfei Ashchina, under the wings of the divine presence. Avraham says, how can I get rid of my son? How can I send him away? And Hashem says to Avraham, listen to Sarah. Whatever she says, listen to her. And our Chazal tell us, and I believe Rashi says it there in the verse, that Sarah Imenu was a greater prophetess than Avraham Avinu, than Abraham. And the question is that so? How are we to understand that? It sounds like when it comes to the nevuah of having a child, Avram is greater. When it comes to the nevuah of getting rid of Yishmael, of having that intuitive understanding that that's the right thing to do, Sarah is greater. So what's the understanding? What's the idea? So the idea here, and this is foundational, it's very important to understand, that the idea here is that there's a male aspect and there's a female aspect. There's Avraham Avinu, who's the male aspect. He's the all-inclusive aspect. Avraham Avinu is the chesed. He's the one who wants to include everyone. He wants all of mankind to be brought to God. He wants all of his children, Yishmael, Yitzchak. He wants to bring them all into his plan. Chesed. He's the boundless love. He's the one who represents that idea. Sarah Imenu is the female aspect. She's the aspect of Gevurah, of limitation, right? Think of it in terms of the human reproduction. The male has endless, millions and millions of seed. Female, one egg. Limitation, single egg, right? The female has to limit things, set boundaries. That's the ability of the female. That's the aspect of the female. We live in a finite world. When we talk about the physical world in relationship to God, so God is infinite, world is finite. We are finite. The human beings, we are the female aspect of God. We reflect God's light. Moon, sun, moon reflects the light. Same kind of things. The sun is the male aspect, the moon is the female aspect. Now with Sarah Imenu, it's an amazing thing. Sarah Imenu is Gevurah, she's limitation. So when it comes to her nevuah, when it comes to her prophecy, she has the ability to have a deeper prophecy in regards to Gevurah. She is to be listened to when it comes to aspects of Gevurah. Okay, so when she says we have to get rid of Yishmael, he's having a bad influence, he can't be included, there's a limitation. Hashem says to Sarah, whatever she says, listen to. When it comes to limitation, Sarah's nevuah is greater. Avraham Avinu, when it comes to chesed, when it comes to kindness, when it comes to expansion, Avraham Avinu is greater. He's the male aspect in that respect. And now we're not saying, by the way here, important, we're not saying men are better, women are better. We're saying each one has a specific ability, generally speaking. There are also places where the female acts as male, right? In the relationship between a mother and the child. So the female is the aspect of giving. The child is the aspect of receiving, of limitation. Conversation for another time. But Avraham Avinu, when he gets the nevuah about there being a child about to be born miraculously, v'chadi, he rejoices. His laughter is a laughter not of disbelief, but of rejoicing, of immense gratitude. Sarah Imenu, when she hears the same nevuah, she can't hear it directly. The nevuah has to come through Avraham Avinu. She hears it indirectly, and she can't believe it. She laughs in disbelief, because that's her middah. Her middah. It's not like there's something wrong with Sarah. That's her middah. Her middah is Gevurah, of limitation. She recognizes her limitations. It's not possible that I could have a child. So now, with that understanding about the male and female aspects, we need to understand that in a similar way, the Jewish people are the one nation, the infinite aspect. And when we speak about one, it's parallel to the way Hashem is one. Hashem is one. He is infinite. He's beyond. He's all-inclusive. He's outside of everything and inside of everything. And Hashem is infinite. In a parallel way, on a physical level and also on a spiritual level, the Jewish people are the one, the male aspect, the all-inclusive aspect, the soul of the Umas HaOlam, of the nations of the world. The nations of the world are the female aspect of the Jewish people, the female aspect of the world. They are limitation. They are, just like Sarah is Gevurah, there's a certain aspect within the Umas HaOlam which reflects the fact that they cannot receive in the same way that Klal Yisrael can receive spirituality. Now, it's the job of the male aspect to be the funnel, to bring that spirituality and offer it to the female, so that she receive it. She has to choose to receive it, though. It's a very interesting thing. It's foundational. It's foundational. Avraham Avinu, and this is the pshat in the relationship between Avraham and Sodom, and the Jewish people and Egypt, and the Jewish people throughout our reality, throughout our history, and our host nations where we found ourselves. And today, the Jewish people, even within Eretz Yisrael, and the effect that we have on all the nations of the world. The foundational idea is that Avraham Avinu was meant to infuse spirituality into the people of Sodom. That was his job, but they needed to receive it. So there was a problem in their ability to receive, and that's why they were lost. Where do we see that? We see that in last week's Parsha. Avraham Avinu saves their lives. Avraham Avinu is now achra'i. He's in charge of them. So now when he comes to the king of Sodom and brings all the people back, the king of Sodom, he missed this opportunity, but he should have said to Avraham Avinu, teach us. You're now over us. You have now captured us, so to speak. You have saved our lives. Now teach us. But instead, the Melech Sodom says, give me the people. You can take all of the rechush, you can take all of the wealth, but give me the people. Avraham says, if that's your response, I can't teach you. I can't keep the people, right? It's really strange. He should have kept the people. He should have taught them. But you see that Avraham Avinu, as the male aspect, cannot force the female aspect to receive. They have to choose to receive. The Melech Sodom missed the opportunity. The Jewish people, throughout their time in Egypt, the Arizal talks about this, that the Jewish people, the purpose of being in Egypt was in order that they receive Gerim. Now notice the difference between the Jewish religion and many other religions. The Jewish religion does not ever force converts. We do not proselytize. We stand and wait for them to come. And even when they come, even when the Gerim, the converts come, they're interested in Judaism, we push them away. Meaning we want them to really want to receive it. We recognize that we are the male aspect, they are the female aspect. In order for them to receive it, they have to really want it. In Egypt, the Jewish people were there to infuse spirituality into the physical. Sodom and Egypt both had this extreme physical aspect, right? Sodom, as the Pasuk attests to the fact that it was Kigan Hashem in that area before the destruction of Sodom. So it was like the land of Egypt. There was water flowing through there. There was crops growing. It was a very wealthy area. That's why Lot wanted to move there. Egypt was the same. These were the places which were the pinnacle, in a certain respect, of the physical realm at that time. And so Klal Yisrael comes in there. This is the extreme physical aspect, the extreme female aspect of the world. Klal Yisrael comes in there in order to infuse the physical, to infuse the female aspect with spirituality, to draw them towards spirituality. Indeed, many people came along with the Jewish people when they left Egypt. But part of the purpose was that, it's a funny thing. They kept asking Paro to let them go. Why did we have to ask? Why didn't Hashem just take Klal Yisrael out? Just leave. No, because we want, just like by Melech Sodom, the king of Sodom, we wanted him to say, take the people. We want him to choose that. We want the king, Paro, to choose to admit that the Jewish people are in charge, that God is in charge, that the spirituality that the Jewish people represent is that which is meant to infuse the physical. And this is true of the Jewish people throughout our history, throughout our time, in all of our Goliaths and all of our exiles. We've been sent out on a mission, as it's a Gemara, it's a Taisvis in Kedushin, the fourth parak. It speaks about the fact that part of the reason that the Jewish people went into exile was to bring Gerim to us, that the converts would choose to come back. All those sparks were spread out. All these Jewish souls were placed into non-Jewish bodies. They are supposed to return to their roots, but they can only do that if we go out there and we're available for them to return. So the idea is that the Jewish people our purpose is we reflect the male aspect, which is chesed, which is all-inclusive, and we're meant to draw, to allow the female aspect, which is the Umas Ha'olam, to choose, to join us, and to be infused with spirituality. That's what's going on throughout history, till this very day. That's what we're here to do. That's what the Jewish people are meant to do. Which is, by the way, on the flip side of things, when the Jewish people lose their connection to spirituality, still they maintain that lofty level on a physical level. That's why the greatest scientists are Jews. That's why there are Jews throughout all the arts. I was just noting how there are certain people who you wouldn't even guess that they are Jewish, who are very famous singers and musicians. There are some who are more known that they're Jewish, but how does that happen, or why does that happen? Because that's infused into the very life essence, the life force of the Jew, is that we are there to infuse something. It's supposed to be spirituality, but we are there to infuse the world with something higher, with something greater, with access to, really, ultimately Hashem, to God. That's the connection between Avraham and Sodom. That was, and we see that also, by the way, by Noach. Noach was also meant to do that. He was the tzaddik. Before Klal Yisrael came along, before the Jewish people started with Avraham, there were still individuals who had the ability to do that. There was Noach. He wasn't successful. Avraham Avinu also, when it came to Sodom, he wasn't able to succeed. But that's why Hashem says, I can't destroy Sodom without first talking about it with Avraham, with Abraham. Because he needs to know these are his people. These are the ones that he is supposed to infuse with spirituality. And that's the connection between Avraham and Sodom. Now, it's a conversation for another time, and it is something that I've spoken about. You can go back in the previous Parsha podcasts, but it's the connection between the destruction of Sodom when the female aspect, gets more and more and more and more separate, and gets to the point where it will never join with the male aspect. So then the female aspect is destroyed. That's what happened in the times of Noach. That's what happens here with Sodom, and that's what happens throughout history. the aspects of Egypt that couldn't connect to Klal Yisrael, they were destroyed. And that was what happened when the Jewish people left, and the Eser HaMakos, the 10 plagues. But those who were able to connect to the Jewish people were brought along. That's the Erev Rav, the mixed multitude that joined the Jewish people from the Egyptians. But the idea is that there's a goal that really all of the female aspect, all of the 70 nations should be joined together with the Jewish people ultimately, should be raised up, infused with spirituality, and that ultimately will be obtained, that goal will be obtained, will be reached when Mashiach comes, when Messiah arrives. As the verse tells us that 10 people of the nations of the world will grab the 4 corner garments of the Jew and say, teach us about God. Because that is our job. Our job as Jewish people is to be a light unto the nations, to teach the world about God. And that was Abraham's relationship with Sodom. And that was the Jewish people's relationship with Egypt. And that is the Jewish people's relationship with all of the nations of the world throughout time and until time ends. So I want to bless you and ask you to bless me. Hashem should help us to recognize who we are. What is our tafkid? What is our purpose? And each and every one of us has this, because it might be inside of our own families. I had my family. I'm the male aspect of the family. My wife is the male aspect in relationship to the children. I'm all inclusive in relationship to everyone. And that's true. That can be true on a broader level, depending on each person has a different ability to affect the people around him. It might be the rabbi of a synagogue. It might be a communal leader. It might be many different things. But Hashem should help us to understand who we are on a personal level and on a more national level and on a global level. Hashem should help us to fulfill that purpose, to continue to do that which we're meant to do on this earth. And Hashem should help us that we should be zeiche. We should merit to see the day when all of the world will indeed be infused with that spirituality of God. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful Shabbos.
This podcast was made possible through the gracious donations of listeners like you. For more podcasts like this, please visit www.arigoldwag.com or search on iTunes Ari Goldwag.